Backtrack. What is up, guys? I'm Tiago. This is Alex, and we have the Dirtx boys in the building today inside their beautiful shop. I don't know if you guys can see it, but that is a beautiful GMC. What kind of GMC is that?
It's
I know. It's
it's a Duramax.
All right,
It's a
okay.
Duramax. It's an Alley HD. So I mean, cool truck, but you need it, dude. How else are you gonna pull all this stuff around?
Yeah, seriously. So to my right, we have Rich Leon, and all the way to my right, we have Brendan Walsh. Pretty much, guys, welcome. First of all, thank you for taking time out of your day to do this. We really appreciate it. Let's get right into it. What's been the best thing right now inside this garage? I'm thinking it's that side by side right there.
I'll be honest with you. The best thing is not inside the garage.
It's
right
a
now.
boat, isn't it? It's
It
a boat.
is.
It's
It
a
is.
boat. I knew it.
I mean, we're in the middle of July, dude. It is like 100 and some degrees outside. Feels like hell. And I mean, that's what we've been doing. We've been boating. Riding for us is really big in the winter.
Yep.
In the spring, and then it kind of kicks back up towards the end of the summer and the fall. We do travel around a little bit. We're out at a couple different shows. This year in particular, we haven't got out as much as we really want to.
Mm-hmm.
But we do have a couple things coming up, so we're excited. I mean, as you can see, dude, I mean, the machines are a great time. We got probably the fastest thing in here right now is probably Brennan's machine, the Pro XP. We got it built over there. And that's it, man. I mean, you see the Ranger behind us, and I think nice thing about that is it's got full AC.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not as fast, but it's not as dusty either. So, but yeah, I mean, thanks for having us. We're happy to be here. I mean, you guys have been having quite a bit of success. We've seen a lot of the reels, a lot of the stuff like that. So we're excited to be a part of it.
Thanks, man. No, we're excited to have you here. So right off the gun, obviously this is a blue collar podcast, so we're going to go right into it. You are the owner of RCL Mechanical.
Yep.
And your co-owner, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Shout out to Mark Mason. I love you.
Gotta give credit where credit's due.
Yeah,
I mean,
you are co-owner
that's
with
my
Mark
guy.
Mason. And so kind of walk me through how you started in plumbing. And then you just worked, and then one day you said, "Hey, I want to run my own business." Is that correct? Or?
Yeah. So I mean, a lot of people don't know the story. People ask about it quite a bit. So people are like, hey, how did you and Mark kind of get linked up? So I'll try to sum it up pretty quick for you. Mark and I were actually really good friends growing up. We grew up in the same kind of neighborhood. We grew up way before iPhones, so we were out riding bikes around, ATVs, dirt bikes, things like that. And again, we were good friends. And eventually, as we grew up, I went to Bristol Plymouth Voc. Mark went too. He was a year older than me. We both ended up kind of in the plumbing program over there. Went through there, graduated, kind of went our separate ways. Mark he went to work for a company called Sagamore Plumbing and Heating. And I jumped out and I actually went to work for a service company up in Boston. So, shortly after high school, Mark and I, we stayed very close. We stayed tight. We started doing a lot of plumbing side work together. We had a pretty good, looking back at it, we call it side work, but compare it to what's going on or what we see today, it was really a business. We were doing a few $100,000 a year in side work, if you want to call it that. So Mark and I linked up, we started doing a lot of plumbing together. And then, Mark was always a mentor of mine, and he set me up with a buddy who was working locally. We did a pretty good project down in Taunton. It was actually a prevailing wage project, so it was a good job. I was making a ton of money, and then one day Mark calls me. He had worked his way from the field into the office at Sagamore. He was an estimator there, and he said, "Hey, Sagamore we're looking for an assistant estimator. Is that something you'd want to do?" And me, like most blue-collar plumbers, right? I said, what the fuck is that?
Yeah.
What the fuck is an assistant estimator?
It's like a paper pusher almost.
Dude, literally, I'm like, so I asked him, I literally said, what the fuck is that? And he's like, oh, come on by, I'll explain it to you. So essentially, there's 8 guys in this company at the time, and all they do is estimate work. I'm like, you mean to tell me 8 people sit in a fucking room and price jobs? That's just weird to me. The owner of the company gets a job, the guys do the job. That's what I always thought, right? So I interviewed, they sat me down at the table, they put everything in front of me. It sounded a little silly, but I really wanted to learn how to run a business. Yep. And then they gave me my offer letter. It was for $55,000 a year. And at the time, I was pretty established. I was making probably close to $100,000 a year at the time. And I thought to myself, you want me to come in here and work 50 hours a week on salary for 55 grand a year. That sounds absolutely ridiculous. So,
Yeah, that's kind of bullshit. If you ask me.
dude,
That's a
it's
huge
just
pay cut.
it was. I mean, especially at the time. I mean, granted, but I mean, you're in the trades.
Yeah.
Like prevailing wage isn't guaranteed. It's not always a thing. You know what I mean? But at the time, again, I was making pretty good money. And I had other businesses too. Like I was doing snow removal. That's something that I was doing since I got my driver's license. But so
You also have to also talk about. I think you have to also mention personal life around that same time, like where you were in terms of your son and everything else going on. Because making the decision to go from that position or taking a pay cut, that's a hard decision when you're a family. Or if you want to maybe touch on that a little bit.
Yeah.
yeah,
Also,
so
guys, by the way, this is Brendan Walsh, our host of To the Gym podcast as well.
he's here. He's here. No, but no. I mean, no, I appreciate it. I mean, I don't really. I try not to talk about it too much because it's we live in a world where people kind of like take all their problems and they dump them on social media and they try to leverage that. But I guess it is important for people that might have been a similar spot to me. But so my son Richard Jr. was born a month after I graduated high school.
Oh, okay.
And at the time when I was making all these decisions, I was a single dad. His mother wasn't a part of his life.
Yep.
He lived with me. My mom actually quit her full-time job to stay home and help me take care of him. So, yeah, I mean, there was a lot going on. A lot of stuff kind of going around. And Mark kind of talked me into it. He's like, hey, like, at the end of the day, dude, it's going to be a good position. It's going to set you up to learn how to run a business. So, I went to Sagamore. I was there for a little while. I became a project manager, started running their commercial service division. And where things really kind of changed for me, entrepreneurially, was like I was sitting around. I'm in this cubicle all day, thinking like, hey, like, what's next for me? Like, what the hell am I gonna do?
Like, did you feel like you were just like, at a standstill in like life? You feel like you weren't like moving on up as fast as you thought you would.
Yeah, I mean, financially, I was in an okay spot. Like again, because because Mark and I run a pretty good sized business, and I was making, again, 55 grand a year, ended up at 80 grand a year. As time kind of went on, and it was healthy. It was good money, but something was just missing. You know what I mean? I started watching YouTube videos. I actually stumbled upon Eric Thomas. I don't know if you guys know who Eric Thomas is. He's like one of the best speakers that's around today.
You've heard of him, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so I started listening to him, and then eventually I found my way. I found this guy named Sean Whalen. I don't know if you guys know Sean Whalen.
I do know Sean, yeah.
Lions Not Sheep. And he had like a coaching and a mentor program, and it was $100 a month at the time. And I remember going to Mark's office, and I'm like, "Hey, dude, like I think I'm going to sign up for this." And he's like, "You're going to pay somebody $100 a month for what? Like, why?" And we chatted about it a little bit, funny story. I mean, if you talk to Mark now, I mean, he spends thousands and thousands of dollars on coaching and mentorship. I mean, it's
Because it's so important. Like,
It is so important.
especially in running a business nowadays.
yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like a lot of people graduate and they're 18 years old and like education is done for them. And like one of our core values at RCL Mechanical is always be learning.
Yep.
And when I came up with that core value, I mean, it's something that I live. I'm committed. And just because you're 18, just because you graduate high school, doesn't mean you have to stop learning. But when you get to that point, it's like, who do you learn from? And for me, it was kind of like, well, my mom always said when I was growing up, you are the sum of your 5 closest friends. Well, I was at the top of that. I was doing just probably as good as maybe my top 5 friends, and I needed to surround myself with people who were doing way better than me that were going to pull me up. And I leveraged Lions Not Sheep. I leveraged that group to again just kind of open my eyes a little bit. Yep. So, fast forward a little bit after that, I told Mark, I said, "Hey, dude, I think that I'm going to go into business for myself full time." So Mark kind of like took over the side business. Obviously we split things financially, whatever. He kept doing that. He stayed where he was. And then I kind of went on to open up RCL Mechanical in 2016. So a lot of people that see RCL Mechanical today, they go, "Oh my God, you guys grew so fast in just like a short amount of time." And it's like, you can say that, but you don't realize that, again, we've been at this for years.
Yeah.
I mean, 8 years, 10 years. I mean, even before RCL Mechanical was established on paper, it's something that I was working at for a long time. Fast forward a little bit, Mark and I always had a really successful side business. We both kind of came from, a great company where we learned a lot, and we were able to leverage that. And Mark left there. He said, "Hey, dude, I think we'd be kind of silly not to continue this business together. Like, how do you want to play it?" And, the rest is history. I think it was 2020 maybe that, Mark and I kind of we opened up a new entity. We kept the name RCL Mechanical because it was already established locally. People knew it. And what's it now? It's 2024, right? Almost
Yep.
2024.
Almost
Almost
we're
2025.
halfway through the year, which is insane to think about. You
I
know what I
know
mean?
it is. It's wild, but that's it, dude. Did that kind of answer your question? I could talk all day about it, but I don't want to hog the stage.
No, no, it's all, no. That actually did answer my question. Where you pretty much started at a young age, right out of high school, and you just wanted to you didn't want to stay at one spot forever. You wanted to just grow and learn and continuously grow and learn. And I think that's a huge thing in life nowadays because some people are just content on staying where they are and they don't care as long as they get the paycheck. They'll stay at the same place for 30 years and that's it.
Yeah.
Whereas like special people like us, where we don't want to stay at the same spot forever, because next year I want to make sure next year I want to be like not near where I am right now. If you get what I'm saying, I want to be at a better place. Better place with this podcast. Better, a better situation at work where I'm like maybe one of the lead guys. Hint, hint, wink, wink. And yeah, I just want to continuously grow, and I think being at RCL and working under you and Mark and all the rest of the guys is going to definitely set me up for success.
Yeah.
So.
Well, one thing that's super important to us is continuing to grow the business. One thing that I look at businesses where Mark and I have both worked in the past, and I think about it. I'm just like, man, like if there was room within those organizations, like I wouldn't have left. You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, I kind of hit a ceiling there. That business was stagnant. It wasn't growing. The type of leadership structure that was there. There was no, I really left because there was no more room for me. A lot of times with social media in today's day and age, people get wrapped up in like, they think that like you have to go out and you have to own a business. And the reality of it is that to start a business is a hard thing to do. And with what's going on now with the trades, you can make a lot of fucking money working somewhere else, and you can make a lot of money. Like I tell guys working for us, it's like, man, you work 6 to 2. Like if you have another thing you want to do, like again, you have the time and you can afford to, it's hard to build something from the ground up. It's a lot easier to have that base, when you work at a good company that has benefits, that pays you well, where you can, afford to live, survive. And that doesn't have to be your only source of income, in the 50s and 60s, your primary job was your only source. Now you can have a solid stream of income from an organization. And again, and then you can still go out and do stuff like this. You can start a podcast, you can start a side business. And hopefully, like if the IRS isn't listening, like that will afford you the opportunity to be able to, again, it's just different, man. When you start a business, right, from a tax perspective, you have to operate that business for a substantial amount of time before a bank even wants to give you a loan. And that's a car loan, a home loan. If you're starting out a business, you have to be showing all of that income 100% to build up your revenue, your sales, so that you can show that to the bank. But like if you have a W-2 income, man, if you have a full-time job, you don't have to worry about that. Like one thing I did before I actually went out and started RCL was I went out and I got a mortgage. I secured it with my W-2 income. I bought a house, and once all that stuff was established, then I said, okay, I'm here. I got a house. I got a new truck. I don't have to worry about it for a little while. Then I went out and started. So I encourage people, I'm not trying to discourage someone from starting their own thing or from, open a business. If that's where your heart is, that's 100% what you should do. But I will say that it's a little bit easier. I did put myself at a little bit of a disadvantage because I was a little stubborn. And, I jumped out a little bit early. So, that's it.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's a great story. Brendan.
I'm past the mic. Sorry.
Brendan, obviously, we were speaking before this. You are a police officer.
Yes.
First of all, thank you for your service.
My
thank
pleasure.
you for standing out on the front lines. Was that something that was when you were growing up you wanted to do that, or was that something where
that kind of changed a few times, and it was kind of based on my environment at that time when I was a teenager. I was working in like behavioral medicine, psych hospitals, things like that. So naturally being around that, I was just like, hey, I see it. Why not go into it? And then the more I started going into it, the more I realized I didn't want to do that. And then I've always had I think it just fit my personality, working with people and their problems at that time. And then also I grew up from a martial arts background. I know Sean, who was in the last, well, I don't know if it was the last one, but one of your podcasts, from around and being in the area. And so you take the martial arts background. I also have a firearms background. I have working with people in their problems background. And it was just like, it makes sense to jump into this field and trying to help people out and do that. So far that was, I also did corrections for a year, and that was a little bit of a stepping stone. And then, with that history of working with different populations of people, different people and their problems, and then that kind of set me up for where I'm at now, which I've been doing for about 8 years.
Nice.
So yeah,
That's awesome, man. So, I guess like the question is like, with police officers nowadays, I'm not sure if you could touch on the subject, but with how police officers are nowadays, you know, what's like one of the like toughest things like going into work every day? Like you gotta really think about, obviously, like going home to your,
I will say this: it's not hard to get hired anymore.
yeah,
It
because
used to be very hard. When going back before COVID, before anti-police movements, before defund the police and everything else, you would show up for a test and there would be thousands of people to take a test. Where the economy was, the amount of money you would make compared to just the cost of living was good. I remember growing up and looking at people or kids whose parents were police officers and that kind of thing, and they'd be like, yeah, they're well off or whatever, or they living comfortably. It's different now. Yeah. So you have to do other things. Or at least, if you feel like you should, then you should. But so again, when I was applying, when I was applying, it was thousands of people, and now you'd be lucky if you get 100, or 30 or 50 people to take a test for a position of, or for like 5 to 7 positions. So I joke around and I say, as long as you don't have bodies in your basement, you're going to get hired. You know what I mean? So it's
100% true.
Yeah, but so here's the thing too. In the whole anti-police and defund the police movement, you're doing that because you think you want a better quality officer. But now people who would be great candidates coming out of the military or this and that, who have families, they're like, why am I going to subject my family to that? I could be the next national news story. Why am I going to do this? I'm going to take a little bit of a, safer route, or something where you're not going to be in the public eye. And so what that means is that your chances of getting somebody with a chip on their shoulder or something like that, or somebody, a lower quality candidate trying to get the job, is you're going to see that. You look at, I don't want to talk about different agencies and things like that, but they're lowering their standards. That's out in the public. That's common knowledge, is that standards are getting lower to get more people and that kind of thing. So what do you think is going to happen in 5-10 years when all those people on the road doing important jobs and that kind of thing? So I guess that's what I'll say about that.
Yeah, so one thing that I want to touch on too, like, you kind of talked about your journey in terms of doing corrections, working in behavioral health. What's important for people to know is that Brendan and I are cousins.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, so
no, I said earlier, I was like, yeah, we'll get into that.
Yeah,
we're 3 months apart.
Yeah, so Brendan and I are cousins. We're 3 months apart. So, we're Cuban, right? Other things too, but mainly Cuban. My mom and Brendan's mom came here when they were very young. I think my mom was 5. I forget how old your mother was.
7.
So, legal immigrants. And obviously there's a lot of stigma, a lot of talk about illegal immigration right now, and I think it's real important to talk about. Again, our grandparents, our parents, legal immigrants, the right way. A long process where it was, you had to say, hey, listen, like, I'd like to come here. Like, what does it take to come here? And you're talking about tests, you're talking about education, U.S. history, things like that. All those things that are completely thrown out the window. Just like you said, as you see the standards of the barrier for entry for law enforcement and other public officials is lowered. It's the same thing for people coming in. I mean, just letting people over the fucking border. So I don't want to go down that road right now, but
it is kind of a good topic, or at least a segue, because we don't. Yeah, a segue into our grandparents coming into the country, because I know you have a lot of respect for our grandfather. I have a lot of respect for our grandfather. He was a mentor, and to see him and the sacrifice, it's a blue collar thing. It's a blue collar thing. I know it's the topic here. I don't think you can get any more blue collar than that. Is packing up your family, not knowing the language, not knowing anything, and going to a country where there's a lot of uncertainty. I mean, to think about if we could do that right now, up and move to a different country, it's fucking scary. You know what I mean? That's a crazy thing to do.
And here's the thing, right? Like, there's a lot of countries in the world, right? Like, why the United States?
Yeah.
And people, have been immigrating to the United States for a long time, because this was a great country.
Yep.
This was a great place. This is a great place that promised, if you come here and you work hard, there is a place for you. Not just for you to collect frickin' EBT and live off the system. There's a place for you to come here and to thrive and to build a business. And like you said, I mean, that's the whole blue collar thing. That's where I got my blue collar mentality. My grandfather he pushed me to be a plumber. But one thing that was super important for my grandfather was he didn't have any sons, right? So he had two daughters, my mom and Brennan's mom, and he said it was super important when they got pregnant and they had two boys 3 months apart. It was always very important for us to be brothers. Like not cousins. He really wanted us to be brothers, and we grew up together. We did everything together. We got in trouble together, and throughout this whole entrepreneurial journey, we're talking about like everything he just talked about, that whole progression. It all kind of started with, my first job out of high school. I was a maintenance guy working for a lab. I was doing a lot of their plumbing there. And I used to drive a water truck. I used to drive to Mass Maritime Academy, and I would actually fill up a 1,000-gallon fiberglass water tank on the back of an international truck. And it would take about 30 to 45 minutes to fill up, depending on how far away from the water I got. And I would literally call Brendan every day. Hey, man, what's up? And we sat on the phone. I don't even know how many hours.
It's no exaggeration. Every single day, we would be on the phone for hours. And if you want to talk about guys, because I know you give a lot of direction in terms of people and getting into plumbing and blue collar and getting into certain trades and things like that, or leveling up. When he was talking about, E.T., right? Eric Thomas, hip-hop preacher, Sean Whalen, a lot of these people where it's like you're a sponge and you're absorbing so much information, we would talk for hours every single day, bounce ideas off each other, and it was always leveling up, leveling up, leveling up. So when you're collaborating with somebody daily on just kind of, like I said, bouncing ideas off each other and, hey, I learned this today, or let me send you this link to this video or whatever, it was just like you just level up that much faster. You know what I'm saying? You're using the brain power of two people as opposed to one.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we grew up very, very close. And like I said, talk on the phone every single day, and it's always about leveling up, amongst other stuff. But
Again, the progression he just talked about, all those different jobs he had, he didn't change any of those positions or go after any of those positions without talking to me. And I didn't change jobs or go after any of that stuff without talking to him. We literally talked every day. I told him, I said, hey, listen, what do you think about me going here for 55 grand a year, And, again, we talked it out, and it's like, hey, like, what's the long-term goal? If the long-term goal is to open up a company, then, then that's probably the right move. So it's super important, again, to surround yourself with people that are helping you level up. And to be honest with you guys, like, again, my grandfather's very blue collar. The amount of, I can't even tell you how many 110-degree days we spent outside stripping shingles off the roof, stripping wood shingles off the side of the house, cutting the grass. It's wild. My grandfather came here, and him and my grandmother combined never made more than $100,000 a year. And when they retired, they had 3 or 4 homes. They had, again, they had pensions. They worked at great jobs. They were, again, just excellent human beings, excellent contributors to society. My grandfather tells us a story. He owned businesses. He had a bakery in Chelsea, and he talks about when he first came to this country, they set you up through whatever it was. I don't know, and they say, hey, this is how you get started. This is, and they give you like that government subsidy. Yep. But back then, before all the EBT, before all that stuff, it was cash. And my grandfather always tells us a story about how, he went in there at the beginning of the week, he got cash, and he went back there later in the week with half of it and gave it back. And they said, no, you keep this, like that's. And he said, no, like I have a job now, like I thank you, but I don't need this.
Could you imagine getting government assistance and then trying to get it back?
Yeah, you don't hear about that shit
because of pride. Because of pride.
Yeah. And not only again. Not only to give it back, but to become a contributing member of society, to to pay an incredible amount in taxes throughout their lifetime, and just to contribute. I don't want to go down the immigration story, but my grandfather literally told us stories like, hey, when we came here, nobody was allowed to watch TV in Spanish. Everyone had to learn how to speak English because English is the language of the United States of America, and if we're going to be here, that's the language that we're going to speak. We're not, and it's different now. Now people come here and they pride themselves on not speaking English. It's like, oh, well, we're of Spanish heritage. Da. Yeah, I am too. But again, you made a decision to come to this country, so it's again we could go on and on. I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole, but
he's probably one of the most badass people I know.
Your grandfather, right?
Yeah. I mean, remember we were there was times where there'd be kids in the yard, at our grandparents' house, and he'd be up working on the roof or something like that, and like on a ladder, and then I think we saw him like fall off land, and then just get up and walk inside, drink a water. And this guy was like, 60 years old at the time, like old.
It's such a different mentality nowadays. You know what I mean?
And tough guy, So
And even just that idea, like Rich talked about a little bit, like no excuses. That's kind of like built into like who you are as a person. It sort of seems like it came kind of from your grandfather, at least, and that seems like the grounding for all success moving forward, right? Like that. Can you just talk about that, like no excuses sort of aspect?
Yeah, I mean, so like this is something that I don't talk about, but I always think back on. Like, every time I ever had like a really, really hard thing going on in my life, I always think like, hey, like it's not as hard as what he did. He told us a story, being in a concentration camp in Cuba before coming to the United States because they would stick you in a concentration camp if you wanted to try to leave the country. And he told us a story about he was a young guy and he was trying to help out one of the younger guys there. And they had a machete and they were cutting trees and stuff. And he climbed up this like steep incline. They were cutting trees. He fell with the machete. It cut his lip. You could like see his teeth through his lip. It was a fucking disaster. And I just think like, this guy did all this stuff to be here, And, one thing that I will say too, I think is really important because I don't think people truly understand, what communism is or what it means to be a free American. But, he told us stories about when he was in Cuba, you used to go to the grocery store with a book and you were only allowed to buy so much food. So it doesn't matter how much money you have, they would only give you X amount of pounds of beef, so on and so forth. And he told us a very popular story about where, him and I think it was his brother bought a pig on the black market. And they literally, they had to buy a pig on the black market like it was drugs. And they smuggled it up onto the roof where they were living, and they literally slaughtered the pig on the roof just so that they would have food for their family. And they almost got caught doing that. And had they got caught doing that, it would have been a shit show. It would have been more than just jail. It would have been, there's severe consequences for that stuff. So people take for granted the ability to go to the store and again, just buy what you want to buy, A lot of people don't really understand what communism is. And what's scary is that what we're living today is in essence the early stages of communism. And it's sad. It's sad to see people just kind of bend over and just, and just be so blind to it, I know where I stand as a person on a lot of issues, and, I plant my flag, and at the end of the day, it doesn't sit well with everyone. There are a lot of people that agree with me and don't agree with me. A big part is social media, like I post a lot on social media, I voice my opinion.
I love it, by the way. The posts are great.
Dude, I've had a lot of people say to me like, hey, you shouldn't talk about politics because you own a business. Like, you might offend somebody. And at the end of the day, like the way I look at it, and I learned this from Sean. I learned this from the Lions Den. He said, listen, he's like, you can plant your flag. He said, and what's going to happen is, yeah, you're going to piss some people off. But at the end of the day, the people that read your stuff and don't agree with you, they're going to go away. And you don't want those people in your life anyway. But by establishing yourself and standing for what you believe, other people that feel similar to you are going to stand up with you. So again, it's just there's so much to unravel. There's a lot going on. I just encourage people to kind of just get informed.
One of the things I want to touch on before we kind of move on from our grandfather, you guys mentioned, we talk about work ethic, hard work ethic, where it comes from and things like that. And I think one of the things that we share our mindset, and maybe some people should have as well, is the respect for our grandparents for making that sacrifice, and the way we can honor it is by working hard at our own lives. And it's like, we've got it from here. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You'll take it this far, and then we will do the sacrifices that we need to do to then take the family to another level.
Yeah,
And then hopefully the same thing, next generation and does the same, and it keeps going. That's how we honor you, and that's how we show respect, is to put in the work in our own lives, and again, just to honor their sacrifice,
Yeah, because brushing up on that just a little bit, my parents are legal immigrants. They came from the Azores, and right away, my dad, came off the boat, and he just wanted to work right away. He didn't believe in the whole government helping anything like that. Same thing with my grandfather
That's
too.
a Portuguese thing, man.
100% it is, because we don't.
What's his name? Manny?
No,
Joe?
Humberto. His name is Humberto. And
I guarantee you that that when you grew up, right, you guys lived in like a raised ranch with wood paneling in the basement and plastic on the furniture.
Okay, so let me. All right, so you're not wrong on some of the things. So I grew up in an apartment house, but one of the apartments had wood paneling. So and I dreaded it every single day, and I was living there for a little bit until I switched apartments. And my wife now was like, "We gotta do something about this wood paneling. This is so 1970s." Like she was not all about it. And thankfully, we moved to another apartment. It's more modernized now, so no more wood paneling. But I kind of liked it. It was a nifty touch.
Felt at home.
But going back about the whole pride thing, I think it's distilled on like people that have it like now that want to work hard and have like a really good ethic comes from their parents or their grandparents because they saw at a younger age how much they sacrificed, how much they worked hard, and you wanted to be just like them or even wanted to get to the point where like you said, Brendan, you want to get to a point where they stopped. You took it over. Now you want to take care of them because they took care of you for so long.
Yeah, it's just more so, like I said, the mindset. And if people don't have, especially younger generations, don't have that today, we need to.
Yeah.
Like, let's be the influence for that. It's having pride in your work ethic, having pride in your life, and if you want a certain life, you got to work for it.
Do you think social media is the issue where like people don't want to have don't want to work hard because you see influencers nowadays, they're like, oh, I can just make like X amount of dollars if I do this, that, and the other thing. Do you think
it's a little bit of both because we're living in a time unlike any other in human history? We've never had the capability to pick up a phone and just know shit in a split second. We're all essentially like cyborgs. We all have, instead of the computer being in our brain, it's in our hand, and it's like a part of us now. If you don't have it for a day, you feel weird. It's like it's just a part of us. But I think in terms of social media, there's pros and cons. Like it's how you use it. I can go through my phone and we call it like doom scrolling, where you just you're scrolling, you're watching all the TikToks, the reels, things like that. But also you can use social media for good, like. Eric Thomas, Sean Whalen, different mentors. If I want to learn about nutrition, I'm going to find the right person to learn about nutrition from because they're posting some shit on social media. If I want to learn about real estate or plumbing or this or that, there's somebody for everything.
Yeah.
And if you want to use social media to your advantage, you can do that. If you want to use social media and just melt your brain, you can also do that too. So I think it's, to answer your question, it is easier because so many kids or so many people these days fall into the trap. It's an addiction. It's a full-on addiction.
Yeah, but the other thing tone, like you talk about all these influencers and all this stuff, right? Like you really, really have to pay attention to who you follow. Like every one of my mentors has built a real business. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of bullshit out there, dude. There's a lot of guys like coaching's huge. Like, oh yeah, what do you do? Oh, I'm a mental health coach. I'm a this coach or that coach. It's like, no, but like, what have you done? You know what I mean? Like, you shouldn't take advice from anybody you don't want to trade places from. Or trade places with. It's just, again, you just gotta, be wary because I think something like only 7% of people are business owners. In the United States, maybe in the world, but 7%. So, I mean, you got to ask yourself, like, are you cut out for this? And again, I mean, there's a lot of ways to make money. Anyone who thinks that they are cut out for it should 100% find a mentor, should 100% pursue it. But just be wary of who you look at on social media because all is not as it seems, I should say.
Okay.
I just had one question on the mentor part because I think that's something people kind of get tripped up on. Like, there's so many people out there on the internet. How would you recommend someone find a good mentor? Like, regardless of where they're at in life, is there anything any sort of tips?
What the fuck have they done? Like, what have they really done? Mm-hmm. Like, not what do they post on social media? Like, what do they do? What type of business do they have? What type of character do they have? Because it's real easy to get a social media account, post motivational shit, and try to be rah, 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 One thing about motivation is that it only gets you so far. It might get you off the couch, but it's not going to work long term. Like, you have to have discipline. I think that one thing that people might get discouraged on is, you might feel a little bit of motivation, you might start to build some discipline, and then you might fall off, right? The biggest thing is, it's a marathon, not a sprint. It's not about how you start, it's about how you finish. So I think it's easy to get discouraged if you start to build a little bit of momentum and maybe you fall off. You might say, hey, this isn't for me. But it's really important. Again, it's just consistency. And one thing too, talking about momentum is a lot of people think that momentum is an accident. Like a lot of people, like all of a sudden, like, oh wow, I'm on it. Like I'm having a really good week. I'm just killing it. And then other times it's like, wow, like I can't get anything right. What is happening to me? Why is my life spiraling? And what people don't realize is that you can build momentum, and the way you do it is with small wins. You have to say, like, again, find some small things that you can do. Like a lot of guys talk about, I forget who the gentleman was. I'm probably doing him a disservice by not remembering his name, but the guy who spoke at the college and talked about making your bed. When you get up in the morning, you make your bed. That's a win, right? And you can kind of create momentum by building on those little wins, little wins, little wins. So
I've heard the same thing with too, where like I think it was I don't know if it was like the same video as that, but it was like a military like officer that became a motivational speaker, and he was like, the first thing you always want to do every single day is make your bed because that's a win. So I mean I live by that now. So I mean making a bed is a huge accomplishment because if you really look at it, like not a lot of people make their beds. I mean and so like that's such a huge thing, and obviously it's baby steps. It's not like one giant leap and then you're standing there. It's all like, how do I get from point A to point B? But it's going to be baby steps. You know what I mean?
yeah, I'll be honest with you. My wife makes my bed now.
Hey, honestly,
And that's probably why she's so successful. That's probably why she's so good at what she does. Because and every once in a while I leave some socks and some underwear on the floor. That way she can build some discipline and pick it up and put it there. So I mean, but
Let me save you.
No, I just had something to touch on what you guys had asked is like, how do you find a mentor or whatever? And I was thinking about it while you guys were talking is like, man, if somebody came to me who knew nothing or had no, wasn't on social media, anything like that, like if there was one person, like think like one person who you would recommend for somebody to actually like dive into their stuff they put on social media or podcasts, the first name that came to my mind, I think would overall be Andy Frisella. Do you have somebody else? I would think, like, because when we were going back and forth, the MF project was a massive influence, I would say, in terms of a podcast that we would listen to on the regular, every single episode. And if you consume two podcasts I listened to that gave massive amounts of knowledge. One is MF project. Number two is Joe Rogan podcast, JRE.
100%, dude, 100%.
But anyways, going back to Andy. So yeah, I think if you consume that person's content, right, you don't want to be consume content all day, every day. Because you're never gonna do anything. But if you were to consume some content to help you and inspire you in life and give you guidance and knowledge and lessons and that kind of thing, I would say the MF project, and now Real AF, he's also on YouTube and everything else. So that would be the number one recommendation I would have for somebody based on the people who I follow.
I mean, 100%. I've said this 100 times. I mean, I've met Andy Frisella in person. I literally, I would not be where I am today without Andy Frisella. And again, we've shook hands. We've been out and about. They put on a big event at his headquarters, First Form, St. Louis, Missouri, every single year.
Touch on that, like who is?
Yeah. So for me, right? So, Brennan sent me a post on Instagram, some dude in Lambo. He's like, yeah, this is Andy Frisella. I'm like, well, who the fuck is he? Like, what does he do? So at first, the Instagram, the cars, that stuff attracted me because obviously, I like cars. I like to go fast. And then I started diving into it a little bit. I'm like, all right, well, who is this guy? What is First Form, And, as you dive into it, you see, wow, like this guy built a successful business. He built a supplement company. And he had the podcast, the MF project, which was, again, I don't even know what number he was at. They ended up somewhere around 300 episodes. And I think that I got in very early, like when episode like 30 or 40 or something. But the moral of the story is, like you said, you gotta find someone, and you have to learn. Like one thing that people don't realize about me is that, before graduating high school, I never read a single book, front to back. Never.
yeah, it's not for everybody nowadays. You know what I mean?
Not
Especially
Holes.
summer reading. You know what I mean?
Dude, I'm just saying. I mean, everyone read Holes in school. I never read it front to back. It was just not something that I like to do. But again, I find myself in the spot where it's like, hey, how am I going to learn? You know, so Audible was a big thing. I got Audible. I started listening to a lot of books, and then I started listening to a lot of podcasts. I mean, if you guys look up Andy Frisella, I mean, I don't even know what First Form, how big the company is now. I mean, hundreds of millions of dollars. I mean, one of the top supplement companies in terms of sales, and the top supplement company in terms of building a culture and just having a kick-ass business. I mean, nobody does it better. But again, for me, people don't realize, and I tell people this, and they just, again, I see it in their eyes. It goes in one ear and out the other. I've literally consumed thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of personal development through podcasts and through books. And you know, I'm not afraid to say it. Like, again, you don't, I mean, you got to learn from somebody, right? And like you were talking about social media and the internet, you can use it one of two ways. I mean, the information's out there, you know. I can't tell you my favorite thing now is like people coming to me with a question, and I'm like, "Did you Google it?" And it's like, "Well, no." And it's like, "Dude, you have an AirPod and you're wearing an Apple Watch. You have a freaking supercomputer in your pocket." I mean, phone technology has come such a long way. And then they Google it, and it's like, "Oh wow, oh, okay." It's like, dude, so
It's that easy.
it's there.
Yeah.
It really is. It's there. But it's almost become so easy that people are like numb to it. They don't realize the power behind it, you know? Quick story with RCL. We had a guy that was doing a lot of ads for us, doing social media ads. And he was trying to create ads, and we were building a schedule. Like, hey, this is how much we need you to post. This is what we're looking for. And he was kind of pushing back. He's like, oh, you don't understand how much time it takes, how hard it is. And it's like, we do understand because we're kind of in the space, you know, myself, Brendan, Mark. I'm like, I mean, I'm not saying that it doesn't take time, but what I'm saying is that you're overcomplicating it. So he was literally complaining, and Mark literally took a picture of a furnace in the shop, went to ChatGTP, wrote an ad, posted on Facebook in 48 seconds. And he's like, and the kid literally just looked at us like,
Dumbfounded.
and it's like, and it was a good ad. It was great. And it's like, listen, I'm not saying that ChatGTP can write all your ads because that won't work. But again, to prove the point, like you're just not leveraging the technology. You're just not using it to its fullest capacity.
Yeah, because that's the big thing, right? It's like everyone has the information nowadays. It's like what's the what's the difference between a successful person and an unsuccessful person? It's like, is it a mindset thing? Is that like a
It's
victim
execution.
thing? Yeah,
It's execution.
yeah.
All you got to do is execute. So many people are afraid to fail. Like, I'm not afraid to fail. Like I failed 100, maybe 1,000 times more than I've succeeded. I fail every single day. You know, I still fail. We have great employees. I have great partnerships. I meet people. I have friendships, and I fail all the time. But you don't see my failures because I fail. I fail fast. I keep moving. I make a decision. We move forward. We move. And then the other thing that, you know, people don't realize, you know, there's a lot of people that, especially recently, that have kind of come at me, come at the business. You know, they attack me. They take things from social media. They take pictures of my truck, and you know, they try to talk shit. They try to use that against me, and that's fucking evil, dude. Like, you know, I mean, to call a spade a spade. I mean, as a man, for you to be trying to leverage what somebody else has against them in that way, it's like you're just a fucking piece of shit.
You have nothing going on in your life at that point, right?
No, you're just a fucking pawn in somebody else's game, dude. And again, it's just I don't want to go too far down that road, but. I mean, it is what it is, dude. There's only so much you can do. But again, you just got to fail fast. And what people don't realize, like people come at me, people try to attack me, and especially people as of late. It's like what they don't realize is, dude, I'm playing with the house's fucking money. Like all the shit you see, dude. Like the reason why I am where I am is because it could all go away. I don't give a fuck, dude. Like I will burn it to the ground and start over because like I know how to buy that truck. You know what I mean? People see the truck and they're like, "Oh wow, look, it's worth X amount of dollars." Like I'll smash the window and I'll scratch the side of it. Like, dude, you could take the truck away, you could take everything away, and I'll just fucking start over because I know you can't take away what's up here, dude. I will get it all back. It will take me time, but I'm playing with the house's money, so I'm not. You can't be afraid to lose. You can't be afraid to fail.
And you love the process, it seems like, too. Just listening to you talk about it, you just like enjoy that thing. I think sometimes people go into business because they want the thing. Like you, it seems like I'm fired up just listening to your energy. You know, like you're about it. Like you're about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, dude. I mean, at the end of the day, right? Again, not to get super like technical or anything, but people want to have a sense of pride or a sense of belonging. You know, like people like nowadays the problem with social media is that people are so secluded and people are sitting around and they're watching stuff and they're comparing themselves and they don't have a sense of purpose. like there's no when the government gives you money, you don't have a sense to go work. You don't have that sense of purpose, and people are lost. I mean, a few hundred years ago, we lived in villages. And what happened in the village? The men went out and they hunted and they were gone and they brought back food. And while they're away, women, children, other men, they took care of the home front, the homestead, right? And then that sense of purpose, women had a sense of pride, like, hey, I'm holding this down while the men are out collecting food. They would bring food back to the village, and you had a sense of pride and purpose. And I looked at you and we ate because of what we did. That's gone now.
100%.
That's literally gone now. So again, social media, it's good, it's bad, but I would encourage everyone. If a lot of times when you find someone who has some anxiety or mental illness, a lot of it when you look into it is again just that lack of purpose. So.
And it's almost like that lack of community too, which you guys do really well at RCL. From the guys I've met, it just seems like you guys are a brotherhood, a family there. And then what you guys are doing with Dirtx, just like going on your YouTube, the sense of community that's kind of there, and everyone sort of coming together. Can you sort of talk about that a little bit? Just that how you guys are actually building community through what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, that's honestly something that I learned from Andy. I learned from Andy Frisella. I learned from First Form. I mean, he talks about culture, and I mean, I've been listening to the podcast, and he would say the craziest shit, like, "Hey, like, what if people would ask questions like, well, I have this guy and he's kind of a pain in the ass, but I can't operate my business without him because he does X, Y, and Z. What should I do?" And Andy's like, you should fucking fire him. And people are like, but what do you mean? But how will I operate? And it's like, dude, it doesn't fucking matter. Because nothing matters if you don't have that. If you don't have that brotherhood. If I have your back, you have my back. And that's a weird thing for a lot of people, right? Because people aren't used to that. People come to a company and they might not be used to being at a place where you have each other's back. They just might not know how to operate in that system.
I mean, I could speak. I can attest to that because companies I worked before RCL, it just like other companies I worked for, I just felt like a number. I wasn't feel like I was part of family. Joining RCL last year, I knew like you guys like really treated you guys with respect, and you always took care of you guys no matter what. So kudos. Thank you. Thank you for doing
I appreciate that. And we try, I mean, again, we fucking try hard, dude. Like we're not perfect, and we do everything that we can do for everyone within our power, what I found recently is that some guys mistake that for like, well, my boss or my company is responsible for me. Like my 100% my financial freedom, like all these things. It's like, we provide, we give you the tools to make a living, and we're committed to growing a business where people can grow and there's opportunity to make more money and to reap those benefits. But at the end of the day, dude, as a man, like you're responsible for your household. You're responsible for your family. It's not anybody else's fault that you're not making the money you want. We had a disgruntled employee bitching to other people. He's like, I've been doing this for 10 or 15. I've been licensed for 15 years. I only make $50-something an hour, and I live in an apartment and all these things. I should be paid way more money. And it's like, whoa, dude, whoa. Like, I'm not responsible for your personal choices and your personal decisions because obviously you fucked up somewhere along the way. I'm here for you. Again, we're not. It is what it is. People have to have a sense of self accountability. Like they have to. Self ownership, and then I'll let Brennan talk a little bit too, like about some of the stuff that we've been doing through Dirtx. Again, just community, just bringing people together because, dude, people are all we have, man. Like all we have is each other. Like I mean, I want you to be successful, and your success doesn't take away from my success. I mean, RCL, we've had a bunch of guys leave and start their own business. Do you know how many of those guys have left, started their own business, and at one point or another come back to us for work? A lot of them. And it's mutual. It's both ways. Guys say, hey, listen, I'm going to have a short week. Hey, good, dude. Hey, can you help me out with this? And vice versa. There's times when we've been screwed. We're like, oh, man, we're really up against it. And we reach out to those people, I mean, because, again, people are all we have. You turn on the TV and they say white people hate black people hate white people. Democrats hate Republicans, and Joe Biden hates Donald Trump and all this bullshit, dude. And it's like, especially all the stuff with BLM, man, like that's a weird topic. But throughout all that, you turn on the TV and they're like, oh, white people hate black people. I'm like, man, I don't hate black people. And then when I go to the store, I see black people and it's like, what's up, man? Like we're friends. And I'm like, who are these people? And you got to ask yourself, right? Like when they're telling you this shit, when they're pushing this shit, there's got to be some kind of agenda. Like why are they pushing it? Like who are you to tell me who I do and don't like? Because there are black people that I have a great relationship with. There are some that I don't like. Just like there are white people, Spanish people, Chinese people. And again, man, it's just anytime someone's overly pushing for something, you have to ask, why are they pushing? Like Donald Trump. Nobody wants Donald Trump to be president, right? And when I say nobody, I mean when you watch TV, they say nobody. Every person I meet every day loves Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Yeah, but again, you got to ask him. I mean, he was just. We can talk about the assassination after we talk about Dirtx, but it's like they try to kill him. Like, why are they working so hard to keep that man out of office? There has to be a reason, you know. Just like, why are they pushing so hard all these different agendas? But I don't. But without going too far down that, I'll pass this to Brennan. Tell him a little bit about Dirtx and kind of like the community.
So yeah, how did Dirtx come about? Was it just
Well, I think an overall theme, kind of touching real quick on what you were saying before.
Okay.
Or what we were talking about. It comes down to, like, we had one major project, and we'll dive into that project and kind of talk about it a little bit, but it comes down to being a good human being, right? Not about your race, not about culture, your ethnic background, nothing like that. Be a good human being, be a good person. It's all about people, and that's what influences the culture in any environment, whether it's public service, whether it's municipality or private sector business. Culture is massive and culture is important. So yeah, be a good person and know that we're all people. Like, our similarities are greater than our differences. And excuse me. So it's good to keep that in mind, and that should be the underlying, like, the foundation of everything we do. So Dirtx, I mean, we grew up dirt bikes, four wheelers, everything. Always had something. Always having a lot of fun. And then it got to the point where eventually we were like, we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, but it was like, we're living at a time unlike any other in history. Like grandparents still alive?
mine not? No.
Okay. If you had the opportunity to see what your grandfather was doing when he was 20 years old and the stories he
I
told.
would do it in a heartbeat. I would want to see how he would want to live.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So, dude, I get goosebumps even
Yeah,
talking
I'm
about
getting-
it. You know what I'm saying?
Goosebumps right now.
But we're in a time where we could do that. Like, so we were like, hey man, we want to live a good life and do good shit and have fun and make the most of this, but let's film this stuff. Let's document it. And at the end of the day, if nobody sees it, who gives a fuck? But if, our grandkids and great grandkids, they're going to know who we were. And they're going to know what we did and the fun times and the good times we had, and or the good shit that we did for people. Like, that's a possibility now. So let's take advantage of this and let's do that. And that's kind of the mindset behind it. But we started doing projects and riding and filming videos and things like that. And we'll dive into Project 144 because that was probably the biggest and best thing that we've done. It was a lot of fun, but it was awesome. So Rich and I remember the day like it was yesterday. Rich and I were brainstorming ideas for projects, right? Side by sides and that kind of thing.
Yep.
And I was on Marketplace, and I found a machine that was busted up. It was a 2016 Razor Turbo, and it looked like it would have been a decent deal. It wasn't running. The motor wasn't even in it. Like, it was in pieces.
Gotcha.
And so I remember calling Rich up, and actually, so I called them first, and someone answers. And I'm like, hey, so I'm interested in the Razor, the whole thing, what's going on? And he's like, hey, I'm selling it. I'm like, why are you selling it? Right? Like typical Facebook stuff. Why are you selling it? And long story short, he explains that it was a project between him and his dad. And his father unexpectedly passed away in an accident, not a motor vehicle accident, like kind of like an industrial, I guess you could say, accident.
Gotcha.
And he's like, and it's too much of a project. It was theirs together, and so now he has to sell it. So I'm like, oh shit. Like, in the back of my mind, I'm like, this is interesting, right? When we were like, hey, let's do some Dirtx stuff, let's do some videos, we were like, let's see what life throws at us and have an open mind and welcoming to that shit. So I call Rich and I'm like, hey man, this is the deal. This is what he said. This is what's going on. This is the price of the Razor, whatever. And it wasn't even a question. It wasn't even like, what do you think? It was like, I think I know what we should do. And it's like, are you thinking what I'm thinking? That kind of thing. And it was like, yeah, let's do it. And the decision that was ultimately made was, we're going to buy it from him. We're going to rebuild it and finish the project and make it 10 times better than he could ever expect. And we're going to give it back to him in his dad's name, And so that was the decision was made. We had no idea how we're going to pay for it, no idea how we're going to do it, and like zero. It was just like, we're doing this. We'll figure out how later. The decision was made. We're doing it. And we could jump to then when we went to go pick it up. I mean, Rich drove, I was in the passenger seat. We got the trailer, the whole thing. Again, the thing, it's a roller. It doesn't run. We get it. Oh, no. Another good point that I should mention is as soon as we made the decision, we called them back. And I did what any good Facebook scumbag does. I beat them up on the price. Yeah. So I think you have to. So I think he wanted like $9,000 for. We had to make it real. And I think I beat him up to like $8,000, And so like, yeah, whatever. So at the end of the day, it didn't even matter. We would have bought the thing for probably $15,000 if we wanted to. You know what I mean? Because we just knew we're like, this is how cool it'd be to do something like this for somebody. So yeah, so we just said we did it. So fast forward, we're at his house. We're looking at the thing. We're like pretending that we care of the condition, and we're like, yep, push the thing onto the trailer, the whole thing. And I remember in the driveway driving out with this piece of shit machine on the back, looking at him and going, it's real now. Like, holy shit, it's real. We've got this thing. We've got to do it. We still don't know how we're going to do it. Let's just do it.
And it's important to note that like Dirtx is something that again we started like in the garage. You know what I mean? Like at the time, it's not like we're an established YouTube channel. We didn't have any sponsors. No money really in the business. It was just kind of like, hey, let's find some projects and let's do some stuff. And I think originally we were going to buy the machine and we wanted to race it until again this whole thing kind of transpired. And you talk about goosebumps too. Like I get fucking goosebumps.
Yeah.
Like I still remember the phone call. I still remember where I was driving. When you called me when we chatted about it. It's wild. And then like you said, pulling out of the driveway, even getting there, like you show up there and it's just such a good fucking family.
Yes, that was a thing too. Like it's one thing like. It worked out perfectly because imagine doing a massive project like that and then the person doesn't appreciate it or I'm gonna whatever you can think of what somebody could do. The family was so amazing, so nice, and it was like I just made it that much more. It's like we're gonna do something great for a great family. We need to do that,
Yeah, and you guys can follow. So we film videos on it. If you go to Dirt Exhibition on YouTube, you guys will find it. You'll kind of find the whole story. You'll find the unveiling and things like that.
It's a 6-part video series that just a couple dudes just filming what we were doing. It wasn't any professional production. We just filmed what we were doing, and we made a 6-part series about it. And it was pretty cool.
I mean, we raised, we got a few sponsors. We raised a bunch of money. A lot of his family chipped in, friends.
We can kind of unpack that because it kind of goes into, I guess, blue collar business kind of thing, anyways. So the mindset So imagine this, right? 2 dudes with no real history and or reputation established in like the off-road community, right? And we have this massive project that we're embarking on and the whole thing. So we're like, how are we going to fund this project? And immediately we're like, we're going to try and get sponsors. We're going to try and get companies on board. And for about a week or two, we reached out to big companies, the whole thing, and just throwing all this shit at the wall and seeing what sticks. And do you know how many people responded and wanted to get on board?
None.
Right? Zero, none, right? And rightfully so, right? Who are these people? We don't know them. Let's not do that. So it's kind of a mindset we have too, and that we've learned is that it's not about what's right and what's wrong. It's about what's working and what's not working. And so in that moment right there, what we were doing wasn't working. So we're like, shit, what can we do to make something work? And then we created a plan. We prioritized, we created a plan, and we executed the plan. So we decided to let them in on it. At first, we weren't going to, and then we decided to let them in on it and let them know, hey, we're going to do this project for you, but you're not going to know what it's going to look like, because we wanted to go somewhat public with it and kind of do like a crowdfunding funding kind of operation about this. And so we did, and I think we raised close to $20,000 in 3 days. With social media, with videos and Instagram and Facebook, and it was kind of like a grassroots effort to do that. That sparked the next phase, which there's a few people to thank for, like George Hamill on the Dirtx show, the Dirt Life show. We were able to go on that podcast, and that kind of got us exposed to major companies like PRP and Shock Therapy and things like that. We ended up getting, I think, like 20 sponsors on board. We raised probably about another $20,000 worth of parts and accessories to then put into the machine. So overall, we're working with probably like an overall $40,000 budget kind of thing for this machine, which was amazing to go from nothing and nobody wanting to get on board to now having 20 different sponsors and then all these people that pitched into the project. And that for then it was like, man, what we're doing is right. Like, we're doing the right thing. And it was it wasn't easy. We ran into some hiccups and problems with that project.
Couple of ER visits, but
Couple of ER visits, right?
but
A crowbar to the eye.
yeah,
That's in the video.
yeah, that was rough. But the biggest
Wear your
thing,
safety squints.
yeah, like this. No, but the big thing, guys, is that it kind of reinforced something that we had kind of learned over the years, and it's not about how many resources you have; it's about how resourceful you are. A lot of times we want to talk about resources. I'd start a business, but I don't have any money. Dude, it's not about how many resources you have; it's about how resourceful you are, because there's always a way. And a lot of times as men, right, you're prideful, you have an ego. I'm gonna figure it all out on my own. But what you don't realize is that, maybe nobody in your circle has started a business and you have no one to go to. But when you leverage the power of social media, you'll find someone. There are a lot of Facebook groups, man. I mean, if you want to get into real estate, there's an endless amount of real estate groups on Facebook. Join those groups. Find a mentor. And the best way to find a mentor, if you don't have any money, if you don't have access to a group, is find someone. And how can you add value to that person? What can I do for this person? A lot of times, and you see this a lot, or I see it a lot now, the more as you start to get a little bit of success, a little bit of traction, everyone comes to you and they want something, right? Everyone's always, hey, can you help me with this? Hey, can you do this? Hey, can you jump on my podcast? I'm kidding. No, but again, people always want something from you, and it's like, hey, like, you kind of you build a little callous, and you get a little bit of animosity. Like, you get sick of people asking you for shit. But it's a completely different world when you go to somebody like that and you do something for them. Like, again, and that could be something small. I mean, it could be like, hey, your podcast kicks ass. Like, I just want to hang out with you. How can I help you? What do you need? Oh, well, we don't really have anyone to hold the camera. We don't have anyone to run the switcher. Run the switcher. Like, boom, there's your in. That's an opportunity for you to get around those people. And then ultimately, again, what goes around comes around. If you start putting out into the universe and you start doing for other people are going to do for you naturally. We live in a generation where everyone is consuming and they just expect, oh, well, you have to do this for me. Oh, well, you have a bunch of money, and that's another thing that comes with as you start making money. You got family, you got friends, everyone wants something from you. And again, the big thing is just focus on your resources, focus on how you can add value to other people, and that's how you'll ultimately get stuff come back to you. But
So yeah, that was kind of like the driving factor with the things that we were doing is what can we do for other people, and how can we add value to the community? How can we add value in ways outside of business and outside of work and things like that? And so that was a massive project that kind of kickstarted that. We've done projects with the Larkin Motors Foundation, and we've filmed trips and things like that. So there's some feel good stuff. There's some good projects that we did to, like I said, help people out. And then we've also gone on some wild adventures, and we wanted to film them, document them, and so we've done that too. So yeah, that's kind of what I guess the YouTube channel.
So it pretty much just started with like an idea where you just wanted to record pretty much the life that you guys were living, and like even if it didn't get a lot of views or a lot of subscribers, you would want to show your grandkids and
Yeah,
like your
so-
children.
Yep. So
And-
so that's kind of like the motivation, right? Is like, hey man, we want to have fun. We want to do cool shit. If we're filming it, that's also going to kind of motivate us to figure out new things to do and new more experiences and that kind of thing. So just trying to make the most of life, man. of
Did you
everything we're
ever
doing.
think it would grow to where it is now? You know what I mean?
I mean, I think our views are always massive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so if you say to grow to where it is now, I'm like, man, we haven't done shit. You know what I'm saying? And it's like the future is bright, and there's
Yeah.
big things coming.
I watch
And-
a
and
lot of your YouTube videos too.
appreciate
You know what I mean?
that.
So
We try and make them fun and things like that. But even still, man, like we still talk, and we're like, what's the next move? What do we need to do? It's always going back to those conversations, like you said. I mean, we don't talk for hours every single day anymore, but we still brainstorm ideas, and we still execute and take action and move forward. So, like I said, we still have things that are coming in the future that people don't know yet. So that's a thing.
damn, I'm excited for this now. Going back to that story about Project 144, right?
Correct.
All right. it literally like my favorite quote is it costs nothing to be a good person, and what you guys
Yeah.
show what you guys did. It literally you didn't have to do it. You could have just bought it, built it up, wrecked it again, and that's it.
And it didn't cost anything.
Yeah, because you got all the sponsors.
Well, it goes back to again, it's not about how many resources you have, it's about how resourceful you are, you know? I mean, we had the opportunity to build a crazy machine. I mean, everything. The frame was powder coated. I mean, again, we built this crazy, crazy machine.
Yeah, we should explain that real quick. We broke it down to the frame. Nothing. Down that machine down to the frame. Not that one specifically, but one like it. Powder coated the frame. And then rebuilt it with all brand new parts, like it's a brand new machine, brand new everything, motor, a transmission, I think, maybe,
Yeah,
everything.
Everything was rebuilt. I mean, again, watch the video because it's really
Yeah.
good. Like the story is really good. Fun fact: like 2 weeks before we were supposed to give it to him, the brand new engine that we bought from a company fucking grenaded, blowing oil everywhere, and we had to like literally.
Did you say 2 weeks?
Yeah.
It was like 2 days. It was like when we got the new one back. Maybe it was 2 weeks.
No. We got the new one in days before.
Okay,
And
yeah.
we got the new motor came in days before we were supposed to give it away. It broke weeks before. But mind you, it was a 6-week wait for that engine. When we first ordered it, and we literally had to call the company and say, not for nothing. And they helped us out big time. They gave us a little bit of a discount on it. We still had to pay for quite a bit for it, but we're like, this whole thing is scheduled to be given away at one of the biggest off-road events. It actually is the biggest off-road event in New England in terms of ATVs and side-by-sides. Like, we're literally putting a sheet on this thing and ripping it off in, like, 2 weeks. And you have a 6-week lead time on this engine. Like, what am I supposed to do? And that company jumped right on it.
Power of people.
Yeah, and again, if you guys go on the video, you'll see the company. If you guys need engines, I mean, again, it's one of those things where when you remanufacture an engine, things can go wrong, right? And I always say in business, like, it's not about, like, it's never going to be flawless. Shit is always going to go wrong in business. And again, from a plumbing standpoint, I can't promise you that we're perfect and that no one's ever going to make a mistake or that a part isn't going to fail. But what I can tell you is that when it does, we're going to get behind it and we're going to make it right. And they absolutely did. They rushed this engine. They built it. We got it in days before. We didn't test drive the machine. Like, we drove it up and down the road. We didn't have time to go in the woods. We didn't have time to do anything with it. And we're like, man, like we have to get this thing together. So
It was like, you ever like think back to when you were a kid and you were watching like Orange County Choppers or something like that, and everybody's in the shop like yelling, screaming at each other because they have to get the deadline. That was us. Like in the last few days was just all out working overnight, like working on this machine to get this thing up and running for a reveal, it was like a reality. We should have had a film crew there because
Yeah,
it was a reality TV show. You know what I mean? It was crazy.
yeah, but again, it was a great opportunity for us to really build a beautiful machine without having the money. I mean,
Just being resourceful and
Just-
saying, let's figure out the way to do it. Let's find it.
There's always a way.
Resilience, everything, resourcefulness, all that stuff was just it was an amazing project, and I'm happy that I could do something like that at least once. Maybe we'll do some more, but at least once in my life, I will look back and say I'm proud. I'm happy that we did that.
Yeah, I mean, it was honestly, it's something that I don't think enough about. You know what I mean? Like, I kind of forget. It's like, it's easy to forget, but I mean, that was huge, And again, we're friends with those guys now. I mean, that's our CT family down there. I mean,
Yep.
we still ride with those guys. We chat with them once in a while, and I mean, it was a good time. So
Yeah.
I'm glad we were able to do it.
How many guys were on this project, bro? I just asking. How many guys were like building it? Was it just you two?
So, you want to answer?
I mean, the majority of everything was Brendan and I, and then we solicited some help from a couple of guys, a couple of good friends of ours, some guys we grew up with. I don't want to mention their names. I don't know if they're comfortable, but if you guys watch the videos, you'll see those guys. They stepped in towards for a big part of the build, and again, ripping the machine down, putting the machine back together. And again, I mean, those guys are the kind of guys that, again, they don't want the limelight, like they don't want the spotlight, they didn't want the credit. We had to force them to like come up on stage and help hold the banner and help reveal this thing. Because I mean, I forget how many people were there. We had a massive stage. It was under a cover. We pulled it off. I mean, we couldn't have done it with all those guys, especially. And you got to think, right? Those guys had no skin in the game. I mean, we didn't pay those guys.
Yeah.
Like, there was no reason for them to help the way they did other than they're good fucking people and they wanted to be a part of it. And they were just as invested as us, when that so that engine, right, it was leaking, and we thought, oh, maybe, hey, we just got to reseal the oil pan. So we were in the garage, and we were trying to take the oil pan off the machine without actually taking the engine out, which is a bitch, by the way. I was laying under the machine. Those guys were up on top of the machine. We had bars going. We're moving, tapping that oil pan, and that's when that freaking pry bar came down and smacked me in the eye. And I mean, it was like a 3-foot heavy duty Pittsburgh pry bar, and I closed my eye, and it blew through my eyelid and actually hit the white of my eyeball. I thought I was blind. Like when it happened, guys, I was like, "There's no way." I couldn't see, dude. It was just blood pouring down my eyeball. I'm like, "Oh my god!" Like this eye's gone. I literally thought that's what we were doing. So I went to the hospital, and I just remember sitting there, and all those guys stayed. They were there taking the machine apart, and I'll never forget the text message I got, and it was a picture of a 5-gallon bucket with the oil in it, and it was literally metallic. Like it was just, I mean, it was obvious that there was metal in it. It was no good. Something.
Who don't know? That's not good.
Yeah, your oil is not supposed to have metal in it, especially that much. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, those guys are a huge help. We couldn't have done it without them. I mean, like I said, if you want to see them, go to the video. You'll check them out on the
We'll
channel.
post. We'll make sure, like we'll post all the links and everything like that. Dude, just hearing that story, I like. It's just crazy to think, like there is still people out there that would, not given the time of day, like would want to do that, but the fact that there is, and they'll just do it with a heartbeat.
I encourage people in your life to go out and try and do some good things for people. Just something. It could be something small, something big. It could be a massive freaking $40,000 project. You know what I mean? Like do something good for people, man. Like, life, your friends and family and business and projects and all this shit. But be a good human being. Do some good shit for other people. And everybody should try and do something like that. You know what I mean?
Are you a firm believer in like karma or anything? Not karma, but like a sense of like if you do good onto others, others will do good onto you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's what you put out into the universe.
Gotcha.
If you put out a certain energy, if you put out that vibe, you're gonna attract it. And I think that's I believe in that. I find value in that. And I think it should be a dictating factor in what you do and the decisions you make.
100%, brother. Man, that's such a great story. I'm trying not to shut it down live on camera.
Yeah. I mean, and like I said, there's more, and we do have plans for more. Maybe this is a segue for what we want to do now.
Yeah, so like Brennan said, I mean that was a big project for us. That was probably one of our that was definitely our biggest project to date at the time when we did it.
Yep.
We've since done some other things. Again, we've raised a lot of money for different organizations, different foundations, and I think that we had the Dirtx show. We got to get some more episodes out there, just kind of talking about what we're doing. But the focus has really been, we really want to open up our own foundation. One thing that we did for the Larkin Motors Foundation to help raise money for the machine that we built for them, which we eventually raffled off and donated 100% of the proceeds to the foundation, was we did our own event where we took 5 veterans up to New Hampshire. Right, New Hampshire's a big area around here, one of the riding capitals of New England. And these are guys that had never really been in a side-by-side before, Some of them paid money to be part of the group. Some of them, other organizations donated money and kind of elected that person to go for the ride. And it gave us an opportunity to share side-by-side riding and share that adventure with other people, And, Brandon talked about a lot growing up, right? Like, we grew up riding dirt bikes. We grew up doing all this kind of stuff. And then you kind of become an adult. You work hard, and you don't really, it's not that you don't enjoy those things anymore. It's just not really a priority. And then for me, like, as a dad, to then have the opportunity to do that stuff again with my son, it kind of relit that fire for me. It, relights the flame. Again, I use fishing as an example a lot. I fished a lot when I was a kid. I won fishing tournaments. I did that with my dad. It was a big thing. And then I kind of got away from it. And then all of a sudden it's like, wow, now my son does this. And what you find out is that, all those things that I love to do and that we love to do, when you share that with somebody else for the first time, it's just a good fucking feeling. Like, we brought these guys up there and they went side by side and like, dude, what is this thing? Like, this thing has 200 and something horsepower. It weighs nothing, 1,300 pounds. It's fast. He's like, dude, all we see is trees. Zing, zing, zing. And that event we actually recorded too. That's on the channel. You can.
It's a good video.
Yeah, really good video. Get on there, check that out. Those guys really enjoyed that trip. So one thing we were talking about is like how can we expose more people to this? You know, and one thing that I remember when I was a kid, like, because obviously, we grew up, we weren't super well off or anything like that. And I just remember going to like the gas station or going out somewhere and you see like a Lamborghini, right? It's like, you see this car and you're like, wow. Like, you look at it, you get close to it. It's like, what the hell is this thing? Like, how do I buy one of these? And you get exposed to some new shit. And it just it almost rewires your brain. It's like, hey, this is possible. So what we really want to do is, we want to establish a foundation. We want to have the opportunity to take people or, kids in particular that have never had that opportunity and kind of expose them to that. Like, what does it mean to ride a side by side? Like, what does it mean to get in that truck? Like, again, like I can tell you that there was a time in my life where that truck was like the idea of owning that was everything to me, right? And it's not that I don't appreciate it or that I don't value it, but I've got to a point in my life where it's like, fortunately for me, I've built my life where it's like, hey, if I total that truck tomorrow, like, I'm fortunate enough to have the resources to be able to go out and get another one. What's super cool to me is to have a 20-year-old kid or working for us to go out and buy that first truck. To see that happen for somebody else, to see that. I mean, like, I go for rides in cars and like with kids all the time. Like, hey, I just bought this truck. I'm like I want to go for a ride in your truck. And guys are like, what do you mean? Like, you have a nasty truck? I'm like, yeah, dude, but like, I want to go in your truck. Like, take me for a ride. Take me on your boat. Take me out to experience this stuff because it's just cool. I mean, like you said, sometimes you hear things, you get goosebumps, you get this feeling. And I really start to get that feeling now with other people. And we really want to use the foundation to be able to expose people to that, and who knows, maybe you get in a side by side and you do it one time and it's great, but maybe it just shows, a kid who doesn't have that opportunity that like, hey, this stuff is out there. And we're programmed to write shit off, to be like, oh, well, like, I'll never afford that. Like I attribute this to vehicles. Like, I remember growing up, like, I didn't like Lamborghinis. I'm like, oh, who would spend all that money for that car? Like, I can build a Mustang and go way faster for less money. And it's like, it's kind of like, what I didn't realize was I was putting like a limiting belief on what I could achieve. I thought, oh, well, if I had $400,000, I wouldn't buy a Lamborghini. But what I started to realize was like, hey, instead of putting up those walls and those barriers, you just start asking like, how do you own a Lamborghini? And there are people, I just actually saw a Lamborghini pop up on my Facebook that this kid was selling, and I start looking into him, and I find out that he does exotic car rentals. And it's like, holy shit, dude, like, if you want to own a Lamborghini and you don't necessarily have the income for the Lamborghini, again, this kid started an exotic car rental business where he has multiple vehicles. And it's like, dude, now he's afforded himself that opportunity to be able to go out and drive those cars and have those things. And I just think that, we're programmed to think that things are so far out of reach and they're so unattainable. But what you really have to do is just, engineer it backwards. What's the car cost? Well, what are the options to pay for it? I can finance it. What does it cost a month? What does it cost a year? Well, how much do I have to be able to make to be able to afford that? And then again, hey, is it like how do you get to a point where that car payment is not an issue, Or when you get smart, how do you get to a point where that car payment is a write-off? How do you reduce your taxable income by owning some of these things? And that's why you see a lot of these guys. I mean, a lot of guys that make a lot of money, Joe Rogan especially, do. Joe Rogan has a nasty car collection, absolutely sick. And the reality of it is, he's got to a point where like like those are appreciating assets. Like, his car collections, again, these cars are just going up and up and up in value as they get older and older and older. And again, there's a lot to it. I just encourage people to kind of reverse engineer things, and start at the end and build your way back. I think vision boards are huge. I think, if you really like something, like if you like Lamborghinis, like, go drive one. Like, there's a lot of opportunities. I mean, you can go on a really cheap trip. You can get 4 guys or whatever. You won't fit all in the car at the same time, but a couple of your buddies, dude, you rent that thing for a day, split it 2 ways, split it 4 ways, and just get behind the fucking wheel of that thing and hold it and feel it and feel what $400,000, $500,000, $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 feels like, and and that it changes you. If you close your eyes, dude, and you think about what it means to touch that fucking steering wheel, like, I mean, it's just it opens up pathways in your mind that I can't explain. Like you said, I mean, a lot of things. There's a lot of shit that's out there. It's like like you said, do you believe in karma? Do you believe in good things? And I do. And there's a lot of things that I can't explain. But what I can tell you is that when you get to that level, when you get to those things, when you physically hold them in your fucking hand, it's different. And we want to use the foundation to give people the opportunity to get out there and to experience it.
Do the stuff that we didn't. Just touching on that, yeah, like do the stuff that we've done in the past, but like times 10. Like how do you do more? How do you like that drive to do bigger and better? It's like, well, we also like doing good things for people. So you're naturally going to have that drive. Like, how do I do more? How do I do bigger? How do I, and so I think that's one of the next moves,
That's what's up. That's awesome. Honestly, that's so like exciting to hear because I do want to see this foundation. Like, I want to see it like in person. You know what I mean? Because even giving like people the opportunity that they've never been inside of a side by side, or haven't even looked at one, you're giving them the opportunity of that. So
yeah, and it's not. That's one aspect of what we want to do. It's overall a massive. Just again, the mindset behind it and the foundation is just geared towards how do we do good things for people. Again, times 10. How do we do more? Bigger?
you guys can be like. There was a TV show I used to watch back in the day, Pimp My Ride. Remember that with Exhibit? You remember it with Exhibit? Yeah. I think you guys can honestly like maybe make a little spin-off of that, Country Boy style. You know what I mean?
In people's trunks.
Sounds like a good YouTube idea.
I think so. I think you guys would make millions. But what you're doing now, it's honestly you guys are right on track of like giving back to the community, doing good things for people, and also having fun. That's the big thing. So
Yeah.
Dude, I want a side-by-side now. I really want one.
So you want to be a player, but your wheels ain't fly. I don't know if you can say that. We'll probably get sued or something. Well, I won't get sued. You'll get sued.
Yeah,
It's your show.
we'll probably get taken down.
But
So my thing is I've never been in a side-by-side before.
well, for a small price of $1,000. Nah, I'm kidding.
I'm looking at these machines and I'm like, you guys definitely created something here that's like no other, you know what I mean? Because I don't see a lot of like content creators like around here doing what you guys are doing, you know what I mean? So it's honestly good because Alex brought this up on the car ride here. He was like, blue collar workers, trade guys, they make money so that they can have their hobbies. This is like your business, everything like that, but you probably owe your resources that you use from blue collar work and trades that you've learned and how to figure out how to make money and then figure out how you can put it into this. So I think that's one of the cool things about you guys where, you're a plumbing owner and you're a police officer. You use your resources to dump into this now and figure out how to grow this into something better. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I mean, you can't get away from the fact, dude. Like, there are a lot more hardworking blue-collar men in this fucking country than there are guys that post pictures online to make money. You know what I mean? Like, it's just you can't get away from it. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on right now. A lot of gender stuff. A lot of people talking about toxic masculinity and all this stuff. But at the end of the day, dude, like if you ever drive over a bridge, you can thank toxic masculinity. Like, men built that fucking bridge. Like, women. Yeah, I'm not saying women didn't contribute in one way or another. But men built that. Men built those fucking skyscrapers. My son's 13 and he's been hanging out at work with me. And today he jumped in the truck. We drove to lunch and he's like, "Hey," he's like, "when you started, like, did you work in attics?" I'm like, "Yeah, why?" He said, "Man," he said, "today we did a delivery and we were bringing some equipment up into the attic." He's like, "It had to be like 130 degrees up there." And I was like, "Yeah." I said, "And you spent, what, a half hour there bringing that equipment up there?" I said, "What were those guys doing? They spent all fucking day there, right? Why? One, so people can have air conditioning, and two, so they can earn an honest living for their fucking family." I mean, if you're considering getting into the trades, there's never been a better time because, again, there's not enough people getting in. So the demand is just absolutely insane. It's through the roof. And it's only going to get harder and harder and harder to find hardworking men. And if you're somebody who has the balls to get up every day and be hardworking and be persistent, like, your opportunities, like I was telling my son this today, I'm like, dude, you're 13, right? When I started business, when I started working, I was competing against a lot of people because there are a lot of strong men out there. There are a lot of people that really wanted to work. And everyone's always talking about, oh, now nobody wants to work. Everyone's lazy. Well, it's like, guess what? Less competition, you know? So go out there, work fucking hard, and don't just work hard, work smart, right? I mean, you know what I mean? And that's something that you got to learn. And you're not going to learn it by playing video games. You're not going to learn it by sitting on the cooler at the end of the driveway talking shit about your other employee or I'm sorry, your other coworker. Because that's what a lot of guys do. The same guys that bitch about how much money they make spend Friday night, dude, riding the bar stool, Saturday on the cooler out in the yard. Fuck that guy, must be nice. My foreman's a douchebag. All he does is sit in the trailer. He doesn't work. And again, dude, all this talk, dude, it literally gets you nowhere, right?
It's stuff you can't control. Like, why would you focus on something that you can't control? Instead, focus on something you can control. And to just touch on what you, I think your original question, I forget what it was, but I have the
It
answer.
was something along with like how you use your career and resources.
Perfect.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So a lot of people, like law enforcement, trades, things like that. If you're a journeyman or something like that, or apprentice, your income it fluctuates a little bit, but there's kind of like a cap there, right? And so some people say, or at least our parents or grew up on, hey, live below your means. Like, you got to live below your means. That's the thing. Here's your means. This is your cap. This is where you have to live. This is the lifestyle that someone like you can live. And I think we've always had that mindset of, rather than living below your means, if you have this feeling like, I want to do more shit in life, it's expand your means to fit the lifestyle you want to live. That's it. So rather than living below your means, don't go beyond your means, expand your means to fit the lifestyle you want to live. That's a massive factor.
At the end of the day, people that are really successful, like, I'm not just saying a guy that owns a plumbing company, but like the people you see on TV, freaking or whatever, celebrities, none of those people, dude, ever saved themselves to being multimillionaires. Like, you can't save yourself to being a multimillionaire. You have to expand your means. You have to figure out new ways to earn income, It's just, it's such a hard thing, especially being blue collar, Like, I'll be honest with you. Like, my grandfather was very against me starting my own business, He literally, he had a saying. He said, sometimes it's better to be the branch of a big tree than to be a bush. And I said, you're right. It probably is better to be the branch of a big tree than to be a bush. I said, but I'm not going to be a fucking bush. I'm going to be the fucking tree. So that's something that I carry with me for a long time, something I live by.
And it just depends on what you feel inside. Because you have to have a massive capacity for just dealing with shit. And so if you're like, hey, I have that capacity, that's what I want to do in my life, that's what I feel in my heart, that's the shit that I want to do, then do that. At the same time, if you're somebody who's like, I want to work my 40 hours a week, I want to spend time with my family, I want to do this, then that's cool, dude. But if you are doing 40 hours a week, and then you're like, fuck, dude, I have this feeling inside that I want to do something more, and you're not listening to that feeling, that's where you're going to start, having that internal, struggle. So follow what you want to do. He has this massive capacity for shit. I've seen it, of just dealing with, dude, we've been through a lot. Highs, lows, good times, bad times. Like, when people feel that, it's always something, it's literally always something. And I'm not talking about little shit. Like, it's always something massive. And it's like, all right, well, how are we going to deal with it now? So if that's what you want to do, then you deal with it. And it's just listen to what you want to do,
I think
what your gut's telling you.
when people are just too comfortable with like the 40 hours a week and just saying comfortable right there, I think breaking that seal or expanding your horizons is so huge nowadays. But nobody wants to take that giant leap because of going back to what you said about failing. Nobody wants to fail nowadays, because they don't want to feel like, fuck, I failed. Oh shit. Then they start disbelieving themselves that, like, I can't do this, blah blah blah. So it's such a small like percentage of like people nowadays to be like, well, if I fail, I fail fast. You know what I mean? So it's such a great mindset to have. So,
Like, people walking around, who's it? Gary Vander.
oh, Gary V.
Gary V.
Yo,
Yeah,
that's
I'm
your
just gonna
boy.
say
That's your
Gary V,
homie.
right?
That's your homie.
Gary V says people are walking around like they get to come back, and it's like, dude, you don't get to come back, man. Like, this is it. This is it.
Yep.
So don't be afraid to fail. Like, just go out and do shit. And if you fail, it doesn't matter. Go out, do something again, like just keep at it. Like I think that's a good way to live, is naturally I'm more of a reserved person. I'm not like the outgoing, and I have become, better, but like naturally I'm not that person, like I said, who's out there, like some other people might be. But I know that we only get one life. So you know what, dude? Like you try and say, I should be doing this. I should live this way. And when you realize that you don't get to come back, and who gives a fuck what people think, dude? Who gives a fuck? Look, go ahead.
I was gonna say they're gonna fucking judge you either way.
Yeah.
They're gonna fucking judge you. They're gonna talk shit. It doesn't matter what you do. I remember. I mean, people talk shit back then. They still talk shit now. And one thing that like people say about me, like, oh, like every time I talk to you, like, oh, where you going this weekend? Like, what are you doing? Like, you're always out. You're always doing all these things, and it just goes what you said, because you don't get another chance, dude. You don't get another chance. If I don't know what the average age is in the United States, you can Google that shit. But let's just say hypothetically it's 75, right? That means you get 75 fucking summers. 75 summers. Right now I'm 32 years old. If you're 30 years old, you got 40 left. 45 left. I got a buddy today. I was talking to him, and he's got a side by side too. And we're talking about going riding. He's like, yeah, this summer's just wasted because he's got other stuff going on in his life. Great stuff, you know what I mean? Him and his wife are having a second baby, and it's they're super excited. Great guy, great woman, great kids. I mean, his son's awesome. I'm sure his daughter's gonna be just as great. But it's like, dude, you got to get out and you got to do that stuff, man, because and that's assuming you get to 75. So many people work fucking real hard, especially people in law enforcement. They work for that retirement. They work to that age, and it's like, dude, you can't wait till you're 65 to start living, dude. I mean, you can if you want to live with regret. My biggest fear is to be on my deathbed one day and to look back at all the shit that I could have fucking done. And, I think that'd be a really shitty feeling. Like, we talk about our grandfather a lot, man. I know that that's something that he lives with now. He's 88 years old, and I think he has a little bit of regret. He wishes that he did some more things, and for me, dude, I go out, I do everything I can, as best I can. I try to enjoy it as much as I can. I try to be a good fucking person, and I'm not, no one's perfect, dude. I make a lot of mistakes. I've made a lot of mistakes. I'm sure I'll make 1,000 more. But again, man, like, you got 75 summers, 75 winters. Like, what are you going to do with them? It's already July. We're halfway through July. I mean, this summer's halfway over, so you gotta now that doesn't mean be stupid and live like there's no tomorrow. I mean, you gotta plan, you gotta set yourself up for the future. But one thing that I always talk about is like, dude, like, it doesn't matter whatever your goal is, right? Like, it doesn't matter if you die with 50 million in the bank or 5 million. Like, you're fucking dead, dude. You're dead. The richest people in the whole fucking world, dude, you can't buy back time. You never get that.
Yeah, I tell my dad that all the time because he's such a penny pitcher.
He's a Portuguese.
Yeah, well, yeah, no, he is, and I love my dad to death because he worked hard for it, but he hasn't like lived. You know what I mean?
You know why? It's a fucking scarcity mindset, dude. Because he comes from a place where he's had fucking nothing, and he's so fucking afraid to lose it all.
Yeah.
He's so fucking afraid to lose it. He doesn't. My grandfather's the same way. And. Luckily, I don't know. I don't know how it happened or when it happened, but for me, again, I live life, and I don't want to lose it. I'm not saying take it away from me, but if it goes away, like, I know how to fucking get it. Yeah. It's just, I don't know, a lot to be said, but only a short amount of time.
And kind of like piggybacking off what we were talking about in terms of not being afraid to fail, not really caring about what people think or say or anything like that. I mean, we've had the opportunity in private to kind of mentor some younger people and things like that. And you even got a message today about if someone judges me, what should I, from a younger person. And
I forgot about that.
Yeah, and what should I do and how should I handle that? And it's funny. Do what we're saying right now. If you're watching this,
just listen to these guys for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Yes, send this thing. And again, it's important. One thing that's super important to think about is like, I didn't wake up like this. I didn't figure this shit out. Like, I found mentors. I found people that were already doing it. I found people that were already in the space. And I just followed them, and I asked really good fucking questions. And is what it is. It's how you get it.
Information changes situations. You know, the more information, the more podcasts that you're listening to, everything else. It sounds cliche. Like everybody's got one-liners now. But if you listen to a podcast long enough, you're gonna get a ton of one-liners. And you don't want to speak in one-liners and cliches, but dude, they're valuable, man. There's some value to that shit. So yeah, I mean, it's real. Information changes situations. The more knowledgeable you are, the more information that you have, your outcome is going to be different. You in the beginning, you were talking about how like your goal is to not be the same person every year.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the goal. Like next year, I don't want to be who I am today. Yeah. I want to be, I want to have more information because what's that going to do? It's going to change my situation.
It's just going to open up more doors and more opportunities. You know?
Yes. Yep.
And I don't know if we can transition to this, but you guys had a podcast before too. Do you want to? Is that a topic we can sort of cover? Yeah.
Actually, let me share this quick funny story. So leading up to the birth of this podcast, we were coming up with names. Obviously, we're the Too Legit podcast now.
There's a thumbnail right there.
And Alex found out that we both had the same last name. Our last name's Furtado, and he found out the Furtado means illegitimate. And so we kind of played around with it. We're like, yeah, we're not illegitimate. We're just really legit. So Too Legit came about. But at first we had what was it? The Solon Legacy podcast. We really loved that name. But then I remembered, I'm like, you guys have the Legacy podcast, which would have been hilarious to be like Solon Legacy because we straight up just sold that from you.
Yeah, so the Project Legacy podcast, that's our podcast. And I forget when we started it, man. But again, it literally stemmed from us having these conversations, you know. Our buddy Justin Rogers, just again another person that we relied heavily on. You know, we exchange information, we talk to just talk to each other about different situations, and we just said, hey, like, yeah, no, seriously, dude, like we used to literally meet at Panera Bread once a week, and we just, hey, this is like, what are you doing? What am I doing? What can we do better? What do you think about this? And then it turned into, eventually RCL started. We got the RCL shop, and we meet over there, round table, whiteboard, and we were like, maybe we should share this, and started thinking about, something that I was never, I don't know, maybe I was never really naturally good at speaking or talking.
I mean, you seem like really comfortable. Like I feel like you can definitely host like 94.5 right now. You know what I mean? Take Charlamagne the God out of there.
Oh, dude. So, but here's the thing, right? You know how I did that? The podcast. I said, hey, maybe nobody will listen. Maybe nobody will care. But at the very least, it's going to help us develop our skills. It's going to help us learn how to communicate, how to talk. And it did, I mean,
That's something I say to Tiago all the time with starting this, is because I'm like a very introverted person by nature. Yeah. When you were talking about that, I connected so hard to that because I feel like that. Like, I don't want to be in front of a camera. That's why I kind of set it all up. I'm like, maybe I can hide behind it. But if you hide behind it, you're hiding behind your life. It's like you get one shot at this thing. So it's like a lot of the sort of motivation for me with the podcast is to meet people, but also put myself out there and develop those skills. And it's like, I found by talking in front of cameras and talking in front of successful people, it's like now when I go to my job or the rest of the world, it's like you feel more comfortable. You can share your ideas, and that's kind of the way you change not only your life but the lives of people around you, is by doing that thing.
Next year, you're gonna talk different in the podcast. Next year, you will be different. It's like people, you think this is for you, like, no, this is for you. You know what I mean? Like you're gonna, but like you're gonna improve in that, and yeah, man, it's a skill, and you get better, and so. It's I don't want to say mastering your craft, but you're working on your craft, and it's self-development, man. And yeah, if nobody, at the end of the day, if no one listens, I'm going to be better at the end of it.
Yeah, and the big thing too is everyone's going to talk shit. You probably have family members, you have friends, you have people that you barely know, and they hear you and they're like, look at this guy, he doesn't know how to fucking talk. He's nervous. You can hear it in his voice. But dude, you just got to remember, like, where's your fucking podcast, dude? Like, what are you doing to get better? Like, one thing that I've learned in this whole thing is that you'll never be hated on by somebody doing more than you. You'll only be hated on by somebody doing less than you. Like, think about it. The only people that are going to talk shit about you on this podcast or what you say or how you say it is people that don't have a fucking podcast. People that have a podcast are going to look at you and be like, dude, good for you. Good for getting out there. Good for putting yourself out there, And it's a hard thing, man. And here's the thing that you gotta constantly tell yourself, right? Anytime you find yourself talking shit or thinking shit about somebody else, like, hey, what is that person doing? oh, hey, wait a second. Yep, I'm being a bitch, dude. You know, like I've done it. We've all listened to it. I've heard guys on Facebook like, and you see people like, what does this guy think he's a fucking celebrity or something? And it's like, well, wait a second. You got to check yourself, dude.
Yeah.
You got to check yourself. And again, nobody's perfect, but again, the big thing to remember is the people that talk shit are never going to be people that are doing more than you. Always going to be people doing less than you. You know, everybody that talks shit about me and my plumbing business, all people with, you know, that are really truly uncomfortable in their own situation. You know, what that is they have something inside of them that's screaming for them to do more, and they're not doing it. So it's coming out in the form of hating on somebody else who is fucking doing it. You know, so I mean, like Brennan said, dude, you're gonna get better. I wouldn't be nervous at all. I mean, and again, people are gonna talk shit, dude. I've had people talk shit. I've had, Mark's fucking mother-in-law was talking shit. Mark's mother-in-law was talking shit, not in a bad way. And here's the thing too, like sometimes when people talk shit, they don't even realize they're talking shit, because we don't know any better. But I was talking about political stuff on our podcast one time, and she said that. She's like, he shouldn't be talking about Joe Biden. You guys own a business, this, that, and the other thing. And it's like, dude, hey, at the end of the day, it is what it is, dude. Like, you don't like it, no problem, don't listen. But do you know how many people that I've met, mentors that I've met, people that you don't even realize are watching what you're doing? Like, you might post this podcast and 3 people like it, but the 3 people liked it, but hundreds of people watched it and said nothing. You know what I mean? And the more you do it, again, the consistency, eventually it's going to start to come out. And you're going to find those people that resonate with you. And you're going to be able to relate to those people. They're going to relate to you. And you're going to build relationships that way. And that's what's important, So don't read the comments, fuck all the haters. You guys know who Andrew Tate is, right?
Of course.
Dude, so my favorite fucking Instagram reel of all time, my buddy Steve showed it to me, was a clip of Andrew Tate, and he pulls up in a Bugatti, and it's this fucking weird color, dude. And he's like, some guy's like, oh, he's like, beautiful car, man. He's like, what do you think about the color? And he's like, oh, he's like, I don't, he's like, I kind of like this or whatever. I like blue. He's like, oh, really? He's like, well, what color's your Bugatti?
Yeah.
What color's your Bugatti? Whatever the fuck he says, dude.
Yeah.
But he's 100% right. You know what I mean? Like, I got people talk shit all the time. All the time. Oh, yeah, like I had a TRX for a while. Oh, why'd you buy an orange truck? It's like, well, what color's your fucking $100,000 truck? Oh, okay. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that to be spiteful, but it's like, dude, again, the only people that are hating on you are people that are doing less than you. People that are smart are going to say, how the fuck did you get that truck? How did you buy that truck? And I'll fucking show you, And like Brennan talked about expanding your means, we talked about on our podcast, like one thing that I did from, when I was real young was I put myself in shitty financial spots. Like, hey, I remember being a plumber, like you guys work, right? When I was a plumber, I went out and bought a fucking brand new truck. And everyone's like, oh man, how are you going to afford that? I said, I better work now, dude. I have to fucking afford it. Like, there's no option but to afford the truck. And I look at myself, and here's the other thing too, right? You have to look at the people that you look up to, the people that you emulate, and be like what does that person look like? Okay, if I'm going to be like, what are they, like, again, I think of myself, what's the perfect plumber? The perfect plumber doesn't show up to work in a fucking Subaru. It just doesn't. And some guys say, oh, it doesn't matter what you drive, the tools are on the job site. So, but I position myself by buying the tools, by buying the truck. I can now take on side work. Like I said, I used that truck to start my other business, which was snow plowing. I did snow removal up until this past winter. It was something that I did. And snow removal, again, as I did it more and more, people are like, why do you still do that? Like, you don't make a lot of money doing that. It's not worth it for you to do that. But what people don't realize is that the relationships that I built through vendors and through people that I did snow removal with, those relationships have paid me millions of dollars in our plumbing company. Like, literally, we're looking at 8 new condos for the gentleman who owned the company that first hired us for snow removal. He owns a landscaping business, now a property management business. We did a ton of snow removal for him, and he's now giving us, again, he's already given us a couple $1 million worth of work. We're about to do 8 more condos for him. And here's the thing, right? When I was fucking moving snow, all these guys, we've been out here for 20-something hours, fuck this, I want to go home. Or I'd be in my parking lot, and he would call me, hey, we have a big fucking problem over here. No problem, I'll be right there. And I would go to the other parking lot, and I would clean up somebody else's mess because somebody else's truck broke down, right? And I'm always solving problems for this guy. Always. And he calls me to this day, and he talks to me like I'm a fucking friend. Because When I was 19, 20, 21 years old, I always solved that fucking problem. And I never, ever, ever said no to an opportunity. This guy owns a multi-million-dollar landscaping company. He was out. People called out. Big shit show, big snowstorm, right? He calls me. He's like, how you making out over there? I'm like, oh, we're kicking ass. He's like, hey, listen, the sander just fell out of the back of the truck. I'm like, what? He's like, I don't know what the fuck happened. I jumped to one of the trucks. I left the office. I had to go salt the bank before it opened up. And the fucking sand is on the ground in the parking lot. I'm like, okay. He's like 15 minutes away from me. I was like, I'll be right there. I loaded the skid steer. I went to the parking lot. I don't even know what a Fisher fucking speed cast or whatever the hell it is, sander weighs full of snow. I brought the forks. I used my machine, flipped it over, dumped the salt in the parking lot. We picked it together. We strapped it, picked it up, put it back in the bed, strapped it down in the bed. I picked up as much of the salt as I could, went over to the curb with it, dumped it back in the sander, and we went about our business. But that's shit that like you don't get like that's so far, and it just exceeds the expectation what he expected of me. That again, it's afforded me so many opportunities. I mean, the guy who does more than he's paid for today usually ends up making more than what he does in the future. People are afraid. People think, fuck that. It's not my responsibility. That's not my job. That's not my job has killed more fucking dreams and more families and more households than anything else in the whole fucking world. That mentality and that mindset. I've always had the mindset. I always go above and beyond. I've always performed and done more than I was paid for.
And really all that is like when you look at, the relationship bank account, like that's a deposit in the relationship bank account. It's I'm doing more than expected. You might, I might not be getting right now anything out of what I'm doing for you, or I'm doing something for you. I'm not expecting more in return. It's a little deposit in that relationship bank account. And I think that's kind of a good mindset to have as well, is with your friendships and your family and things like that. It's like making little deposits. This is the deposit for you. This is the deposit for you. This is the deposit for you. Obviously not getting sidetracked and taken away from the big picture, but every once in a while it's good to make that deposit. It's going to come back later.
I honestly, this is the first time I ever heard like the deposit thing. I'm actually going to start using that from now on.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I think I might have to use that. Because a lot of people owe me money, so so I'm gonna have to fucking use that.
Absolutely.
Man, this has been such an amazing experience, guys. First of all, I want to thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day. I know you guys are both busy individuals, but the fact that you're on this show, I'm not saying I haven't said this to anybody, but you guys are actually my dream podcast guests, and the fact that you made it happen kind of makes me like really happy.
Thank you, dude. My pleasure. 100%.
Thank you so much. Any last minute words of wisdom that you want to share upon these beautiful guests at home?
I'll end with this, okay?
All right, go ahead.
America is a free fucking market, all right? This is a land of the free, home of the brave. I really, really feel a certain type of way about individual freedoms and everyone having the ability to choose. And anything that threatens that, anything that takes away from that ability to choose, or tries to sell you something, I don't know. I guess all that glitters isn't gold, and I really value the ability to make my own decisions and to do things. And I will never give up my ability to make my own decisions and my ability to do the things that I want to do in exchange to be a part of somebody's shitty fucking group. You know what I mean? Like, peddle your shit somewhere else. Nobody wants to be a fucking part of your shitty club, dude. So.
Fuck yeah. Hell, now I'm double fisting the mics. You take that. Guys, thank you so much again. The real president, Mr. Donald Trump, I hope you're okay.
He's golfing, dude.
He's golfing? No shit. Hey, I hope he's gonna win it. He's gonna win it. I have full confidence. I'm gonna make that banner into a t-shirt. Go ahead. Yeah,
I was just gonna say, dude. Like, we were talking before the podcast, and we're, I'm a massive conspiracy theorist and everything else, and we won't go down that. I know we've been at it for a while. We won't go down that rabbit hole. Maybe
that'll be a part two.
Yep, part two. We're going deep down the rabbit hole. So
we're never coming out.
Stay ready.
We're never coming out. All right, I'm Tiago. This has been Alex. This has been the Dirtx boys, Rich and Brendan. We'll see you guys next time.